All right, so I'm just going to go through a couple questions. You guys asked me to go over some of these different topics, so I'm just going to go through a couple with you, and we'll just go from there. So I'm not going to go over all of them because a lot of these are very similar. So I'm going to go through a couple of rewrite, maybe one, maybe two. You guys asked for absolute value, adding integers. No one asked for opposite numbers, but I'll go through one of them as well. All right, so remember, one of the questions is going to be you have to rewrite the subtraction problem, or more than one, to an addition problem. So this right now is 35 minus 48. So we are going to change the subtraction to an addition. So this becomes 35 plus negative 48. So by doing this, it allows for us to see what our signs are a little bit clearer, because some of you have asked, well, is this 48 negative or is this 48 positive? So this allows it to be a little bit clearer. Our signs are different. We have a positive and a negative because it also says solve, a positive and negative. So we know when we do that, we're going to subtract. And we're going to subtract the absolute value of the smaller number from the larger one. So 48 minus 35. So this way you can use the method that you're used to doing. And 8 minus 5 is 3, and 4 minus 3 is 1. So now we know that the difference between these two numbers is going to be 13. And since the larger number was negative, I know my answer has to be negative. Just think about this. If you owe me $48 and you paid me $35, you still owe me money. So whatever the larger number is, the sign of the larger number will be our sign of our answer. All right, so step one, you must be able to rewrite it as an addition problem. Step two, solve. We're going to do one more of these. All right, so for this one, we have negative 13 minus 32. And since addition subtraction doesn't matter the order, we could, if we wanted to, write it and look at it this way. It doesn't really matter which way you choose it. But we're just going to change this to an addition problem. So negative 13 plus, and I'm going to make this negative 32. All right, so this is one of the ways that we can do this. And now we see both of our signs are negative, so we're going to add because they're the same. So then when we add, we get 45. And since they are both negative, and that means on our number line, we are starting on the left of 0. So we're starting at negative 13, and we're moving to the left even further, 32 units. So that means our answer must be negative. All right, so remember, even though we start talking about multiplying negative numbers, here we're just adding them. If you owed me $13 and I lent you 32 another day, you now owe me 45. So make sure that we are doing that. All right, so for the absolute value, remember, absolute value is the distance from 0. And since we're talking about the distance is always positive, because it doesn't make sense if I call you and say, hey, I'm negative 2 kilometers away. What does that mean? So distance is always positive. So the absolute value of negative 85 means it is 85, because that means the number negative 85 is 85 units away from 0. That's what we're saying there. So the absolute value is measuring the distance that negative 85 is from 0. So the answer must be positive. So the answer is 85. So for this one, what's the absolute value of 48? Some people confuse this with the opposites, but remember, we're always measuring the distance. Well, 48 is 48 units away from 0. So our answer is still a positive 48. The absolute value is measuring the distance. So our answer after we take the absolute value will always be positive, since we're saying how far away is this from 0? What's the distance? Okay, I'll do this problem as well. We can treat the absolute values like a parentheses, meaning we need to do this first. So we need to do what's on the inside first. So I need to do 68 minus 95. Just to rewrite it as an addition problem, you don't have to. But in case this is helping you identify your signs a little bit better, we now see that the signs are different. So I need to subtract. So I'll borrow from this 9. So 15 minus 8 is 7. 8 minus 6 is 2. And since the larger number was negative, I know that my answer is negative. So now after we combine those inside the square root, inside the absolute value first, now we need to take the absolute value. And the distance that negative 27 is from 0 is 27 units away. So our answer is positive 27. All right, so now just two more questions we'll do is adding integers. So here I'm not going to rewrite because there will be some parts that you don't have to. If you want to rewrite this into an addition problem to see your signs a little bit better, you always can. But you don't have to in this one, so I'm not going to. I see that both of these numbers are technically negative, so that is telling me that the signs are the same, so I'm going to add them. So 584 plus 978. Well, 4 plus 8 is 12, carry to 1. 15, 16, carry to 1. 14, 15. And since both numbers were negative, that means that my answer needs to be negative, because if this was on a number line, I'm starting at negative 584, and when I'm subtracting or adding a negative number to it, I'm moving even further to the left. So that means my answer must stay in the negative. Remember, I gave you that little sheet as well of like the anchor chart of showing you what steps and route you take and what questions you kind of ask yourself as well as you're answering these. All right, then the last question I'll do on this one, one more, I'll do an opposite with you. You know, you guys didn't ask, I'll just do one more. But here I see I have a negative and a positive. So when the signs are different, I subtract. I subtract the absolute value of the smaller number from the larger one. So it's 841 minus 168. Because we talked about before, if I do 4 minus 1, that's 3. 1 minus 4 is negative 3. So since we get that same number, just different signs, it doesn't matter really how we subtract if we just are taking into consideration our signs. So by doing this, it's allowing us to use the methods that we've learned before. So I can borrow from this 4 and now do 11 minus 8, which is 3. I'll borrow from the 7, 13 minus 6 is 7, and 7 minus 1 is 6. And since the larger number is negative, our answer must be negative. All right, one more question and that'll be it for this video. All right, so remember, opposite means we're jumping to the opposite side of the number line. It's saying what number is the same distance away from 0 on the other side of the number line. So this one, even though we're talking about distance in a way, our question is asking what number. So our answers can still be positive or negative for this. So when we're doing the opposite of the opposite, well, first, the opposite of negative 51 is I'm going to now, let me start this one over. Of negative 51 is on this side. So our opposite of negative 51 means I'm jumping to 51 units away on the opposite side of the number line, which is positive 51. However, I had another opposite to do, so I'm going to take the opposite of that answer now and move back to the other side, which is bringing me back to the original number, negative 51. So the opposite of negative 51 is negative 51. All right, that is it for this video.